Hello learners, welcome to Unacademy, India's largest e-learning platform. Let's crack class 12 CBSE Commerce with us. So I'll start off by introducing myself. My name is Simran Bajaj and I'm currently pursuing my law degree, that is BA LLB Honours from Amity University, Uttar Pradesh. I have a teaching experience of almost 2 years, having taught students of classes 11 and 12 from the CBSE background, and I hold certifications in advanced contract drafting as well as one in cyber laws. You can use my promo code Simran10 that is given at the bottom of the slide to purchase an Unacademy subscription and avail a 10% discount on your purchase. So what an Unacademy subscription holds for you is an access to daily live classes wherein you can chat with your educator, you can engage in discussions, you can ask your doubts and answer polls, all this while the class is going on. And then there are live tests and quizzes which help you evaluate your preparation with our regular mock tests and quizzes wherein you get a detailed analysis of your performance. Also, the courses that are offered on Unacademy are structured in line with your examination syllabus, which helps you prepare the best for it. You get to prepare with the top and best of educators, and you get an unlimited access to all our live and recorded courses that you can watch from the comfort of any of your devices. So we'll begin with today's lecture, that is Chapter 3, Business Environment, Part 1. So the concepts that we will be understanding in this video are the meaning of business environment and the dimensions of business environment. So let's start with what is business environment. We already know what is business. Business is any activity. It is an occupation wherein a person or an enterprise engages itself in either the production, purchase, manufacturing, or exchange of goods or services for the primary objective of earning profit and satisfying the needs of customers. So we very well know what is the meaning of the word business. Then we move on to the second word, which is environment. You know, if you try to understand it very simply in a layman's language, it is anything and everything that surrounds you, your surroundings. Your surroundings are a part of your environment, and generally what we refer to environment is what is outside a business, the external things that are around you. So all that forms to be a part of business environment. So when it comes to business environment, it involves a sum total. I'm so sorry. So when we talk of business environment, it includes a sum total of all the individuals, the institutions, and various other forces. These could be political forces, these forces could be legal forces, these forces could be economic factors. So everything that is external to a business, it could be institutions, it could be individuals, it could be other forces that operate outside a business, and they are beyond the control of a business and they affect its performance. Now, the impact that the external environment of a business has on the operations of a business could be positive or negative, depending on the kind of business operations and the nature of the force that has an impact on the business. So one of the writers has a very he has put it very precisely that you take the entire universe and you subtract the organization from it, and what you get after subtracting the remainder, that is the environment of the business. So the economic, social, political, technological, and various other forces that you can name that operate outside a business are a part of its environment. So the if you talk about individual consumers, or you talk about competing enterprises in the market, as well as the government, consumer protection groups, competitors, media, courts, and every other institution that you can name that is working outside a business enterprise constitutes to be a part of its environment. So the important point here is that these individuals, institutions, or the forces that we have named, all these affect a business despite being external to a business. They are not the forces that are working within the organization. They are something which are external to a business. All right, so these institutions, these individuals, and forces that we have named, they work external to a business. So these forces are likely to influence the performance of an enterprise, even though they exist or they occur outside the boundaries of a business. An example of this could be changes in government's policies, or you could think of the technological developments that are taking place at a very rapid pace. Then there could be political uncertainty, which leads to instability in the country, and it will ultimately have an impact on the business. So all these changes in customers' tastes, and changes in fashion, and increased competition in the market, anything you name, all these influence the working of an enterprise in various ways. So you could say that an increase in taxes by the government can make things expensive to buy. Or you take an example of technological improvements, which may render existing products as existing machinery obsolete. So you pick up any situation and you can see that in a way it impacts business. As we talked about, political uncertainty creating instability in the country, and further it creates fear in the minds of the investors. Or changes in fashion and tastes of the customers, it leads to a shift in demand in the market from one product to another. And when we talk about another factor like competition and increased competition in the market, this can reduce profit margins for the firm. So business environment is a complex phenomena. It is a combination of a number of forces. So on this note, we will discuss the features of business environment. So starting off with the first one, that it is a sum total of all the external forces. Now we have discussed the meaning of business environment. It means it includes everything that is external to a business. So business environment refers to everything that is external to a business. Now there can be internal instabilities, there can be internal feuds in an organization, but an organization's approach in dealing with its internal disturbances and its external disturbances will be completely different. So when we talk about business environment, it is completely external in nature. It includes individual factors. It includes your other enterprises. It includes other forces. So business organization is a completely external factor. Then moving on to the next feature, that is the business environment comprises of two kinds of forces. These could be general forces and specific forces. Now specific forces, when we talk about specific forces, these include investors, customers, competitors, suppliers. And specific forces are restricted in terms of their impact to an individual enterprise. So they have a direct and immediate effect on an individual business organization in terms of its day to day working. All right. Then the second kind of forces we talked about are general forces. These include social, political, legal, technological, and economic conditions. These forces, they have an impact on the business or the business market at large. They do not generally affect one type of business. I'll give you an example of this. For example, a taste in a change in taste of the customers in the fashion industry will affect the entire fashion industry. It is not affecting one fashion organization, one business that is engaged in the fashion industry, but it will affect the fashion industry at large. So this is a general force. At the same time, when we talk about political instability is at the nation at large. It will have an impact on each and every business that operates in the country. So it is not restricted to any one organization. Its impact is not restricted to any one type of organization, but it is restricted to the business market of a country at large. Likewise, we talk about an increase in the taxes that are imposed by the government, or changes in regulation. So these regulations, these rules that the government will frame, they will affect the businesses at large. So this includes the general forces. While we talk about the specific forces, for example, a new technology with respect to one type of business has been introduced, so it is affecting a type of business, a particular type of organizations, which will leave the previous machinery and previous technology obsolete. So this is a specific force. So depending upon the realities of a given situation, you can classify the forces of external environment as specific or general, right? Then we'll move on to the next feature, that is interrelatedness. Now, when we talk about the different factors, the different elements of business organization, these are these parts or these elements of the environment are closely interrelated. For example, in the recent times, in the modern times, there has been an increase in the life expectancy of people, and also people have started to become more aware about their health. So an increase in this life expectancy and this increase in the awareness about health among people has led to creation of demands of newer products like um, diet coke, green tea, fat-free cooking oil, and health resorts and services like gyms. So these new trends, these newer conditions of market, they these new health products and services have changed people's lives, and a demand for these products has also impacted businesses. So the various factors, the various um, um, elements of the business organization are very closely related, right? Then the next characteristic is dynamic in nature. Now, the business environment is highly dynamic in nature because the changes that are taking place in the environment, they are highly dynamic. They are subjected to change. So some change or the other keeps on happening in the environment of a business. So these changes could be in terms of newer policies being implemented by the government. These could be changes in terms of technological improvements, changes in terms of shift in consumer preference, changes in terms of new competitors entering the market. So the environment, the various factors of environment are highly dynamic in nature. They keep on changing. For example, we take the example of the coronavirus situation. The pandemic has completely changed the situations that existed in the external environment for businesses. Now businesses have to take care of hygiene on a priority basis. They have to make sure that the customers wear masks, that the employees wear masks, that the business enterprise, their premises are well sanitized, they are safe. So all this forms to be a part of dynamic nature. For example, prior to this coronavirus situation, the hygiene aspect was not emphasized on so much, but now things have changed. So this is what dynamic means. Changes happening and businesses adapting to that change. Then the next characteristic is uncertainty. Now, business environment is highly uncertain because you cannot predict what is going to happen next. For example, nobody had predicted that a pandemic in these modern times will hit the world at large, and it will have such a drastic impact on the economies, the world economies. So business environment is very uncertain in its nature because it is very difficult to predict what is going to happen, especially when the environment changes and the changes taking place too frequently. And in case the example of this could be the information technology, in which the changes take place at a rapid pace. And another example that we discussed was an increase in taxes by the government. अगर सरकार टैक्स बढ़ा देगी तो जो सामान आप खरीदेंगे वो expensive हो जाएगा. So an increase in taxes will result into expensive buying, thus resulting in an increase in the prices of the end product. So these influence a business's working in day to day. Like newer technological improvements can render existing products obsolete. When we talk about political uncertainty, if there is political uncertainty, it will create a fear in the minds of your investors, and the business's performance falls down. So business environment is highly uncertain. You don't know what factor is going to impact your business and in what ways is it going to impact your business. Hence business environment is considered to be a very uncertain kind of environment, right? Then we move on to the next characteristic, that is complexity. Now business environment consists of a number of interrelated and dynamic conditions, like we have already discussed. So the business environment consisting of these numerous interrelated and dynamic conditions or forces, these arise from different sources, and when they arise from a number of sources, it becomes very difficult to understand um, that what exactly constitutes a business's environment. So it can be said that environment is a very complex phenomena because it consists of a number of factors that are influencing, that are working together and then forming a part of the business environment and then having an impact on the business. So it can be concluded that business environment is a very complex phenomena, and that it is easier to understand the environment in parts rather than understanding it as a whole, rather than understanding it as in totality. For example, it will be difficult for an organization to know the extent of the relative impact of various factors like social, economic, political, technological, legal factors on the change in demand of the product. When you analyze all these factors while looking at the change in demand for a product in the market, you will have to study each aspect individually. For example, you'll have to understand the social phenomena with respect to the change in demand of a product. Then you'll have to look at the economic factors. Then you'll have to look at the political factors, technological and legal factors likewise. So you cannot look at all these factors together in line. You'll have to pick each one of these study them in detail. You'll have to analyze each one of them, and then only will you be able to come to a conclusion. Hence, business environment is a very complex phenomena because it consists of a number of interrelated and dynamic conditions which arise from different sources, right? Then we'll talk about the concept of relativity, that is the last characteristic of business. Now, business environment is a very relative concept since it is different from one country to another. The business practices are different in every country. The managerial approach, the managerial practices are very different from one country to another country, and from one region to another. So there can be different political conditions in two countries that have an impact on its businesses operations, on the businesses functioning. For example, the political conditions of India and China are very different. The government in China is very unstable, in Pakistan is very unstable, whereas the government is in India is much more stable, and the conditions, the impact that it has on businesses is very different. Similarly, you pick a product like saris, which have a demand in abundance in our country like India. Whereas when we talk about a country like France or Germany, the demand for these products is almost non existent. So, business environment is a very relative concept, right? Then we will talk about in the upcoming slides about the various dimensions that constitute to be a part of a business. So first, let's talk about environment. Let's just sum it up what we understood by environment and why is the study of environment very important. So just like us human beings, business enterprises do not exist in isolation. Business enterprises have to cope with anything and everything that is around them. So every business firm is not an island that is unto itself. It exists, survives, and grows with respect to the different elements and forces of the environment. So, while an individual firm is able to do a little change in controlling these forces, there is no alternative to responding or adapting according to them. So, a good understanding of the environment, a good analysis of the various factors of environment, a good evaluation about the factors of environment by business managers, by the management, enables them not only to identify and evaluate various threats and opportunities, but it also helps them to react to these forces that are external to the firms in the right manner. It helps them formulate a plan of action. So, business, the study of business environment is important, and its understanding by the managers should be uh, appreciated. For example, when we talk about business environment, it helps the firm in identifying its opportunities, and if the opportunity is worth being exploited, they the organization or the enterprise can have a first mover advantage of the same. So opportunities are, they refer to the positive external trends that can help a business improve its performance. So when you study the environment, you are able to identify these opportunities at an early stage, and this gives the enterprise to be the first one to exploit them instead of losing them to the competitors. A classic example that is also given in your book is the example of Maruti Udyog, that became a leader in the small car market because Maruti Udyog was the first enterprise, was first in the car market to recognize the need for small cars in India in the environment where the petrol prices were so high and the income of people, the disposable income, was not as high. And in large middle class population in India, small cars would suit the best. So Maruti Udyog became the leader in the small car market, because it was able to recognize the opportunity to create one. So it becomes very important to analyze your business environment when it comes to exploitation of uh, opportunities. At the same time, when we talk about opportunities, there are some threats. There are some trends in the business environment that may occur from time to time, which will hinder a firm's performance. So apart from opportunities, the business environment is also a source of threats. So these can, a good analysis of the business environment can help the firm identify these threats on time, and they serve as early warning signals. So when a business enterprise engages in a detailed analysis of its external environment, it can identify the various threats that are a part of that are the part of the external environment of a business, and these serve as warning signals. For example, if a firm in India finds out that one of the foreign multinational companies is coming to the Indian market with a substitute for their product, this information will act as a warning signal. So, on the basis of this information that a new foreign multinational is entering the Indian market with a substitute of their product, the Indian firms can prepare themselves to meet the threats by adopting various measures such as improving the quality of their product to compete with the new product, or to reduce the cost of their production so that the cost of the final product comes down, etc., etc. So threats can also be identified. That is why a study of business environment is necessary. Also, no business can operate without its resources. So, an analysis of the business environment will help the business organization in tapping useful resources. Environment is the only source of um, resources that are required for running a business. So, in order to engage in any type of activity, a business enterprise assembles these various resources called inputs, and these inputs could be finance, raw materials, machinery, labor, etc., etc., from its environment, from various sources like financiers, government, suppliers, etc. So the people who decide to provide a business with the various resources, they decide to provide these resources on their own expectation to get something in return from the business. So the business enterprise supplies the environment with its outputs such as goods and services for customers, payment of taxes to the environment, and return on financial investments that are made by investors, and so on. So there is a responsibility to give back to meet the expectations of the external environment. Now, since the environment depends very heavily on the environment for a source of inputs, um, it makes sense that the enterprise designs its policies in a way that the resources that it has acquired, they need to be converted into output that is desirable by the external environment. This can only be done by a better understanding of what the environment has to offer. So this is why we study the business environment, because we need to cope with the changes that are occurring in the environment. For example, the business environment today is getting increasingly dynamic, where changes are taking place at such a fast pace. So it is not the fact of change itself that is so important as the pace of change is. कि changes हो रहे हैं वो तो हमें पता है, पर किस पेस पे हो रहे हैं वो भी हमें पता होना चाहिए, so that a plan of action can be formulated at the same pace to meet with these changing conditions. For example, there are turbulent market conditions, less brand loyalty of customers, division and subdivision that we call fragmentation, etc. So all sizes and all types of enterprises are facing this increasingly dynamic environment in these modern practices of business. So in order to efficiently be able to cope with these changes, the management should understand and examine the environment to develop courses of action, their plans of action to cope with the changes that are happening in the environment. At the same time, when you are analyzing the environment, it will help you improve the performance of your business. When you have an understanding of the business environment, you can relate to whether not to really will it make a difference in the performance of an enterprise. So many researchers reveal that the future of an enterprise is closely bound with what is happening in the environment, and the enterprises that continuously monitor their environment and they adopt suitable business practices, they adopt suitable business plans of action. So this will not only help the business in improvement of its performance, but it will continue to succeed in the market, to sustain in the market for a longer period of time. Then lastly, the last point why a study of this subject of business environment is important, because it helps in planning and policy formulation. When you study your environment, you know of the opportunities and of the threats. You will be when you understand and analyze, this understanding and analysis will um, serve as a support in formulation of the future course of action for various training guidelines for decision making. For instance, a new player in the market comes, a new competitor enters the market. This means that more competition may make the enterprise think afresh about how to deal with the various situations. So these are the reasons that I have listed why the study of business environment becomes important, right? Then we'll talk of the various dimensions of a business environment. Now, dimensions are also known as factors or elements of business environment. These are mainly economic, social, technological, political, and legal conditions which are considered relevant for decision making and for improving the performance of an enterprise. So, in contrast to the specific environment, these factors explain the general environment. It is not necessary that one of these factors being specific to a kind of environment will also affect the other kinds of business in the same way. So it is a more general, and these factors are more general in nature, which mostly enterprise the businesses at large. So management of every enterprise can benefit from being aware of these dimensions instead of being disinterested in them. For example, scientific research has discovered a technology that makes it possible to produce an energy efficient light bulb, so that lasts at least 20 times as long as a standard, a normal bulb that is used. So managers in the lighting divisions at General Electric and electronic stores, they recognize that this discovery had the potential to significantly affect the unit of their growth. This opportunity that the organization that I'm referring here to is Philips, the organization, the famous electronics company Philips that we know today. So they recognize that the discovery of that bulb, which can serve 20 times more than the normal bulb, had the potential to significantly affect their unit growth and their profitability. So they had carefully followed this process of research and analysis of their business environment. Now we'll talk of all these kinds of the dimensions in detail. We already know that dimensions are factors that affect a business enterprise, and these are economic, social, technological, political, and legal conditions, right? So the first kind of environment, the first dimension that we're talking about is the economic environment. So this includes interest rates, disposable income, etc., etc. So the interest rates, the inflation rates, the disposable income, the stock market indices, the change in the value of rupee are some factors, some economic factors that we can name. So these have a direct or indirect impact on every business, on the management practices of the business. For example, short and long term interest rates will affect the demand of the various products and services. In cases of construction companies and automobile companies, the low long term interest rates proves to be beneficial for automobile and construction companies, because it results in an increased spending by consumers for buying homes and cars on borrowed money. Obviously जब long term loan पे interest कम होगा तो लोग उस source of finance का use ज़्यादा करेंगे, and this it says is has proven to be beneficial for the automobile companies and the construction companies. Likewise, when we talk of the disposable income of people, um, a rise in the disposable income of people due to an increase in the GDP, the gross domestic product of a country, will lead to a higher demand of products. So, economic environment, the economic forces, every business, be it a domestic or an international business, they are affected by the dynamic economic environment conditions that prevail in the market. So among many economic factors, we have discussed that there are interest rates, there are demand and supply, there is a recession, then there is inflation. There are n number of factors you can name which can have an impact on your business. For example, we talk about the demand and supply. So these two are great economic factors. The demand and supply factors, they affect business models working. The demand and supply, these two factors have a very huge impact on businesses. Demand is how willing and how able a consumer is to purchasing what the business offers, and supply is how able the business is to make available what the consumer needs. For example, a mobile phone infused with the latest technology is introduced into the market, and this product fetches a higher price due to a high demand in the market. जिस चीज़ की डिमांड ज़्यादा है उसका प्राइस भी ज़्यादा हो सकता है, एंड द प्राइसेस विल रिमेन हाई इफ द डिमांड एंड द प्राइसेस रिमेन हाई इफ द डिमांड इज मोर देन द सप्लाई. अगर सप्लाई से ज़्यादा डिमांड है, मेरे प्रोडक्ट की डिमांड बहुत है पर मैं वो डिमांड नहीं पूरी कर पा रही हूँ, तो मेरे प्रोडक्ट का प्राइस ज़्यादा रहेगा मार्केट में. सो दिस इज़ हाउ demand and supply as a part of economic environment has on the business environment, on the businesses. I'll give you another example of this. For example, bad weather in the 2000s messed up the sugar crops. It is, I think this dates back to early 2000s. So the bad weather in 2000s messed up the sugar crop in Brazil. So, arguably the largest producer of sugar in the world, ब्राज़ील एक ऐसी कंट्री है जो सबसे ज़्यादा दुनिया में शुगर प्रोड्यूस करती है. एंड बिकॉज ऑफ बैड ईयर समवेयर अराउंड द ईयर 2000 or 2001, their sugar crop was messed up, and because of this there was a decrease in the supply of sugar globally. You see the kind of impact Brazil's bad weather had on the entire economy in terms of supply of sugar. So the prices of sugar rose steeply, and this led to other suppliers capitalizing in opportunity and increasing the supplies, which brought down the cost. So जब मेरे प्रोडक्ट की डिमांड ज़्यादा है और सप्लाई कम है, there will be an increase in the prices. So another example of economic environment is from the concept of marginal and total utility. So the amount of satisfaction that is derived by consumers from the goods that they use is called utility. So after continuous and successive consumption of units of the same goods, the fulfillment that is experienced by a customer, the sense of fulfillment that is experienced by a customer starts depreciating. जब आप एक ही प्रोडक्ट बार बार यूज करते हो तो आप उससे उतना फुलफिल नहीं हो पाते हो. तो जो यूटिलिटी है, जो कंज्यूमर का फुलफिलमेंट एक्सपीरियंस है, वो कम होता जाता है. इट स्टार्ट्स depreciating. So this results in the short term or long term fall in sales of the business. So most organizations prepare for the launch of a different brand, a different product line, or a different product range before they collapse in utility, and sales is drastically affected. So the whole of a new brand, the idea behind introducing a new brand is to ensure that the revenue trend of a business is not affected, that the revenue trend is does not drop down. So the fall down in utility is another economic factor that affects the working of a business. So we have discussed the impact of interest rates. We have discussed the impact of disposable income. We have discussed the impact of demand and supply. And we have also discussed the impact of utility. So these are some economic factors to name which have an impact on the business's operations. Then we'll move on to the social environment of the business. Now, social environment includes social forces like customs, there are traditions, then there are values, there are social trends, uh, and society's expectations from a business. So let's talk about traditions. Traditions are social practices that have lasted for decades. For example, हम बहुत तरह के festivals celebrate करते हैं इंडिया में. So these are a part of traditions. For example, we celebrate Diwali, we celebrate Christmas, we celebrate Eid. So there are a number of festivals that are celebrated in India, and the celebration of these festivals provides a significant financial opportunities to certain businesses. For example, greeting cards, sweets, confectionery items, then tailoring outlets because we wear newer clothes on festivals, all of these. So traditions have an impact on the demand of a product. For example, at the time of Diwali, you will see everywhere diyas are being sold because the demand for those products is so high. So traditions have an impact on business, the working of a business. Then we'll move on to values. Values are concepts that the society holds in high esteem. For example, in India, values of individual freedom, the concept of social justice, equality in terms of opportunity, the national integration, these are the values that are cherished by all of us. When we translate these values in terms of business, they translate into the freedom of choice in the market, the business's responsibility towards society. So, uh, these will also include non-discriminatory practices of environment, creating benefit for the society. So, these values also have an impact on the business. It becomes important for a business to incorporate these values in its practices. Then we move on to social trends. Social trends present various opportunities and threats to a business enterprise. For example, we talked about a health and fitness trend that has become very popular in the country, especially in the urban areas. So, when we talk about this trend, this has created a demand for products like organic food, diet soft drinks, gyms, green tea, fat free cooking oil, food supplements, etc. So, this trend has proved beneficial to the fitness industry. On this, at the same time, it has proved harmful to businesses like dairy processing, tobacco, liquor, etc. And so this was all about the social environment, the various customs, traditions, social values, the social trends, the expectations of society affect a business in its working. Then we'll move on to the technological environment. Now, in very simple terms, technological environment includes forces relating to scientific improvement. All right, scientific improvements and innovations. So, when we talk about technology, it gives us new ways of producing goods and services and newer methods of production. For example, the recent technological advances in the field of computers, in the field of electronics, has modified the ways in which the companies advertise or they function. So, technology plays a very important role when it comes to the operations of a business. It refers to that state of science, that field of technology in the country, and it has related aspects such as rate of technological process, the institutional agreements for developing and the application of new technology. So, technological environment simply means the systematic application of scientific and other organized forms of knowledge to practical tasks to businesses. So, technology comprises of both machines, that is what we call hard technology, and it also includes the scientific thinking, the scientific intellect, what we call soft technology, which is used to solve various problems and to promote progress. So it consists of not only the knowledge and for methods that are required for carrying on and improving the ways of production, but it also includes expertise and professional know-hows. So technology includes inventions and innovations. The main features when it comes to technology, the features that are a part of the technological changes, these include a component of macro or indirect action on the environment. It includes technological changes in the modern context, that technological changes are taking place at a very fast pace. So, technological environment affects the manner in which the resources of an economy are converted into the output. It affects the entire production process that a business enterprise entails, and it requires for the conversion of resources into desired output. So technological environment is self reinforcing in nature. All right, technological environment is self reinforcing, and an invention in one place leads to a sequence of inventions at other places. For example, computers invent hue the, and there the kinds of computers that existed at the beginning, when these computers had come, they were very big and they were unaffordable by businesses. But now, as we see the evolution of computers, we have even small PDAs, personal devices. So this has led to an evolution. Technology is self reinforcing. One invention leads to a sequence of other inventions, right? So technological environment has a grave impact on the working. When we take an example of airline companies have internet, and they have their web pages on the internet where customers can look for their flight schedules, their destinations, and the fares, and they can book their tickets online. You do not need to go to the airport. You don't need to rush to the airport that is so far to book a ticket to Malaysia or to Singapore. So the airline companies have connected themselves to the internet, and it makes it easier for the customers to book their tickets, check their flight schedules, etc. So these innovations have continued in different scientific and engineering fields, and you can name any of these fields like laser, robotics, biotechnology, food preservation. So a shift in demand, we can take the example of the shift in demand from fountain pens to ballpoint pens. This is a result of technology. A shift from vacuum tubes to transistors. Then a shift from steam locomotives to electric engines, a shift from propeller airplanes to jets, and from typewriters to computers. So this involves a process of evolution, and this is how uh, technology is responsible for creating newer businesses and for having an impact on the businesses. Then the next kind of environment we will talk about is the political environment. Political environment includes the various political conditions, such as general stability, peace, or the attitudes of government generals towards businesses. So the significance of political conditions in businesses success lies in the predictability of business activities under stable political conditions. So I've mentioned stability. Stable political conditions are necessary for the smooth functioning of a business. So political stability, when we talk about it, helps to build confidence amongst the business people to invest in the long term projects. When there is an investment in the long term projects, there is a growth of the economy. So political instability shakes this confidence of the investors. Likewise, when we talk about the attitude of government officials towards business, that they hold towards business, uh, can either have a positive or negative impact depending upon the kind of attitude they have on the business. When we talk about the opening up of our economy, which happened in the year 1991, it started in the 90s. So the to um, foreign companies found it very difficult to invest in India because they had to cut through that bureaucratic red tape. They had to cut through the bureaucracy to get permits for doing business in India. So at times for them, it took months to get their applications processed, and as a result of this, companies were discouraged from investing in the country. So the situation has improved over time after the opening up of the economy after 1991. So political conditions of a country are have a great impact on the business. So the modern society, in modern society, politics is simply defined as all those activities and all those set of systems which have a direct impact on how power and authority of the government are allocated and how they are used. From a business's perspective, changes in these systems can affect the fortunes of a company in several different ways. For example, the taxation policies. The government is responsible for formulating the taxation policy. So the most obvious impact is in the form of changes in laws and regulations that affect a business. So taxes in particular, when we talk about the taxation policies, it can have a massive impact on your business and the profit margins, because in most democratic states the changes in government will bring a kind of regulation, which changes in which changes are associated with the taxation policies, where with changes in the political ideologies of the political party in power. For example, if we take the example of US, the Republican Party in the US and the Conservative Party in the UK are a clear illustration of parties who favor tax cuts as a route to helping businesses grow. So when we talk about Donald Trump's election in the US, it has, the election of Donald Trump in the US has resulted in some of the biggest tax cuts in living history. So this was an example from the American political environment where it works both ways. If you live in a region where the governing party has established high corporate tax rates and offers a little incentive for small business owners, then you might want to consider moving your company from one country to another if you work at an international scale. Similarly, when we talk about the various regulations and abiding by these regulations, apart from the concept of taxes, the government holds the power to change laws in a country. So, the environmental sustainability, the social responsibility, the labor laws, etc., are they fall under the ambit of the regulations. So, an increase in compliance with regulations will affect the overall ease of doing business. So, if you abide by the laws, the regulations that the government has formulated, it will be easier for you to do your business. And even more relevant from the business perspective are changes concerning compliance. Uh, these compliances can be with respect to financial reporting and auditing. So, an example from the American business environment is the example of Dodd-Frank Wall Street reform and the Consumer Protection Act, which was also passed in the US in 2010. Back then, Barack Obama was the president of India, and the Dodd-Frank Wall Street reform and the Consumer Protection Act of 2010 in the US by Barack Obama was a response to the 2008 financial crisis that had occurred in the United States. So, designed to regain in its financial stability, it was targeted by the crisis who claimed that would make US firms less competitive. So subsequently, it was this act was repealed in 2018 when Trump had come to power. But the decision that was made in 2010 with respect to the Wall Street reform and the Consumer Protection Act was in response to the financial crisis of 2008. So, although this was repealed by Trump in 2018, demonstrating how the political will of the day can severely impact day-to-day business in its operations. So at one point of time, that law was implemented, that regulation was implemented, but when another government came to power, when another ruler came to power, the same legislation was struck down. So this is about the political environment. Then the last is the legal environment of a business. Legal environment of a business introduces us to the role of legal agendas with respect to managerial decisions. This helps managers in operating their business and getting to know the limits and boundaries of their operations in a country. So the management makes its decisions in accordance with the laws that prevail in the country. So these regulations assist the business enterprises um, to be under the scope of law and the government's regulations. So companies, firms, management, owners, and their uh, shareholders or debenture holders, they endeavor the operation of a business in accordance with these laws. So it every business requires a comparison and in-depth study of various aspects of the legal aspects and the various laws that are prevalent in the country. So to put in simple terms, everything that is related to the welfare of any registered party, which can be among the owners, the business, the equity shareholders, etc., etc., that is bound in a legal contract with the company itself, come under the terms of the legal environment. So legal environment forms to be a vital part of a business's environment, and it includes the various legislations, the laws that have been passed by the government authorities. And it is imperative for management to be aware about these laws, to obey these laws, and having an adequate knowledge of these laws. So for example, there are various acts. For example, the Consumer Protection Act of 1947, which was recently amended in 2020. Then the Competition Act. Then there is the Companies Act. So there are a number of acts, a number of regulations, legislations that a firm needs to abide by. For example, the advertisement of alcoholic beverages in India is prohibited. So, advertisements including packets of cigarettes, they are required to carry a statutory warning that says cigarette smoking is injurious to health. Likewise, while advertising baby food, it is necessary for the advertiser, for the company, to inform the potential buyer that mother's milk is best for the baby while you are advertising baby food. So all these regulations are required to be followed by um, any organization. So this was about today's lecture. Thank you so much, and you can post your questions and queries in the comment section, and I will see you in the next class. Thank you so much.